Oh, hey guys. Holy shit, dude. Anyhow, we just do a video for posterity or whatever. This video is for entertainment and education purposes only. Any and everything I say could be wrong. That's why I always say, do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Thanks. Thank you. And so anyhow, yeah, not much going on here. I got stuff coming up. I have to, kind of figure some shit out. Things always tend to kind of figure themselves out, whether I have any say in it or not. So, but whatever, I gotta roll with the punches and shit. And right now, it's been so fucking hot that there's no point in going out and doing anything, and there's nothing to do anyways, Like I've got these little jobs scattered around, but they don't pay much. And I'm kind of getting tired of doing that. I'm getting tired of where really it's more I'm doing the employer a favor more than anything else, Which I don't mind doing that, but it kind of gets old because I got my own fucking problems, And besides that, it's so fucking hot. You can't even go outside, dude. It's ridiculous. Like you gotta pay me a lot of money to fucking go outside. Like what you might normally pay me $15 an hour or whatever to be out working out in the outside. Now because it's so fucking hot, it's like, dude, you'd have to pay me $20 an hour to get me out in that shit. I'm not killing myself over some little measly, $13, $14, $15 an hour, slave labor shit. I'll just sit in here and do nothing and go hit up the fucking food banks and just, eat sandwiches and shit until it cools down and I can get some kind of reasonable fair work for fair pay gig. But in this summer heat, man, it's like, and then all these motherfuckers, all these guys out here, no respect to the elders, but all these guys out here, they're all old, and they still think that, you can buy a fucking soda for a nickel. It's like, dude, this ain't your grandma and grandpa's country anymore, as one of my buddies likes to say. A soda pop don't cost a nickel no more, grandpa. It's like, come on, dude. This is 2025, man. We got everybody's on the verge of fucking homelessness. You got fucking well over 1 million homeless Americans fucking eating out of dumpsters. That doesn't even include all the fucking homeless illegals in this fucking country. Fucking a loaf of bread costs an average of $5 fucking. You can't even get a fucking small coffee in a fucking refill cup for less than fucking, $2.50. I mean, fucking shit's outrageous here. And you wonder why people don't want to work. Well, when nobody wants to pay a living wage, well, if you can't live off of the pay you're getting paid, then what's the point in working? It's more cost effective when it becomes more cost effective to not work a fucking job because jobs don't want to pay anything. Then can you blame a motherfucker? Like how bad does the people have to get fucked before people just decide, you know what, I can go fuck myself and be less miserable fucking myself than to be fucking willingly going and getting fucked by any and everything imaginable. Just right down to just going and getting a fucking cup of coffee. It's like dude, look, I have this cup. It's from 3 days ago. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll just go into Love's gas station because this is obviously not a Love's cup. So I will get the refill. So I'll only get charged for the refill, not the actual cup. And this is a small, mind you. So I go get a small coffee with this cup, so I get charged the refill price. It still comes to like $2.50. And I'm like looking at the lady. It's not the cashier lady's fault, because of course the fucking chiseling cunts all hide. They're all hiding. And then they put the poor cashier in as the face of all this, so that the cashier gets all the fucking disgruntled customers' attitudes and shit. So I'm trying not to give her an attitude, and I'm just like looking like, well, how much did I even save? If it's $2.50 just to get a refill, how much does it cost if I were to just buy a fucking, buy a brand new cup? Like, how much am I actually saving here? Dude, you can't even go and get a cup of coffee without getting your ass fucked. And again, no disrespect to the elders and shit, but all these elderly people, they all got their pensions and their retirement shit, so they don't even understand what it's like to live in these economic times, because they already got their pensions and everything. They don't understand it to the degree that someone like Gen Xers do. Dude, like, did you know? Look, like the boomer generation and all this shit. Okay, when the boomers grew up, did you know this? When the boomers grew up, there was no homeless people. Like, the poorest people owned houses back when the boomers were children. Think about this. Think about this. When the boomers were children, the poorest motherfuckers in the United States of America owned fucking homes and owned cars and fucking had jobs where they could afford to pay for homes and cars. Like, education, going to college was affordable. Owning a home was affordable. Owning a car was affordable back when boomers were children. Now, fast forward to Generation X. Like, dude, Generation X was the first generation to just get totally fucked. And it's gone downhill ever since. Housing, education, and employment were all like easily accessible to the general population. So much so that the poorest people owned fucking homes. Back during the days when boomers were children. I'm talking like when 80-year-old people were children. You didn't have homelessness. So what happened? Why is it that there's all this homelessness, and when I go to the store, I fucking cost me $2.50 to get a fucking cup of coffee? Why is it that the cost of living, an average income does not even cover the cost of living nowadays? And you see, all of these boomers, they're all protected because they already got all their pensions and their retirements, because they all had their careers and all this shit. They stopped giving out pensions and fucking shit like this and retirement plans for the most part during Generation X. Like, no more pensions, no more retirement plans. It's slave labor, full-on slave labor from here on out. And this generation gap is what causes all this confusion, because these older people, they don't understand. They think that things are the same now as they were back when they were growing up. And that's why they say, what's wrong with the kids, Why is all these homeless people, And whether you believe it or not, Like the boomers control the media, dude. The older generations control all this media. That's why the media is the way it is. That's why there is no media that's talking about this. Like, what is going on with the economy? Why is it you can't even afford to live anymore? The reason they don't talk about this on any and all media is because the boomers control all the media, dude. You know? All the guys that really have the money, they're too old. They're old. All the guys that really have the money are too old. They're just too old. And again, no disrespect to elders because, I'm just saying, they don't even understand what's going on. They're not in touch with like my age. Generation X has always been like, what's wrong with this generation? They can't do anything right. They can't even buy a soda pop, says the boomer, But like if you listen to bands that were coming out when I was growing up in my teens, all these cool bands were that's what they were singing about in their song lyrics, like the Nuclear Assault song. It says there's a Nuclear Assault song called Inherited Hell, which is what Generation X inherited hell. Whereas the boomer generation when the boomer generation grew up, the poorest people in the US had owned homes. And it went from that to, in one generation, it's like fucking immediate hell. There's a Nuclear Assault song called Inherited Hell. It says, a time in the future not too far away, the death of our world we are told, destroyed by neglect and now breeding despair, the home of mankind is despoiled. Polluted oceans, unbreathable air, the life of the land under siege, a cancer is spreading and wasting the world, and mankind is now the disease. The forests are gone and the oceans destroyed. The world we once knew now is dead. The animals are slaughtered, wildlife in its grave while the sun burns too bright overhead. Cities collapsing and famine runs rampant. A nightmare where once there was life. Radiation and toxins a part of the children who will hate us until they die. Bah! Like, dude, see, that's truther shit. That's fucking truther shit from the X generation before the fucking term truther ever even existed. And that song is more true now than ever. Like back then, nobody was talking about that. When Nuclear Assault put out that album with that song, nobody was talking about that shit. Now that it's way too late, now it's the popular thing to talk about. Now that it's like so far, you're like decades too late into this shit, It's already done and over, dude. But anyways. No, dude, like my friend my friend pointed out, is like, dude, a soda pop don't cost a nickel no more, Grandpa. Like, no, this is shit hits the fan. Like this, that's why I fucking live in a fucking trailer, dude. That's why I live in a fucking 11 foot by 8 foot fucking trailer. Not that the previous generation had it perfect or anything, but like they don't understand the generations coming after them and what the generation, like even just Generation X that came after them and what Generation X has to face, the damage left behind that Generation X has to live in. The generation prior to Generation X is totally checked out. Like they don't even understand. Like we are not operating on the same level of reality. Like the boomers and Generation X are two completely different realities. And the boomers don't know that how different things are with Generation X than they were with boomers. Like it's totally different. There was no homelessness back when the boomers were growing up and living at home with their mom. There was no homelessness. Now there's like over 1 million homeless people. Suddenly, boom, poof, oh. And because the boomers have been controlling all the media, they're sweeping all this under the rug because it's the accountability that the boomers have for all this damage that has gone on in the generation prior to Generation X. All these boomers that control all the media have been, like making sure that boomers don't have to be held accountable for all this, these collapsing fucking cities that are like they don't want no part in accountability for any of it. Like when I think back to when I lived with my dad, like my dad, a boomer, everything was about outward appearances with my dad. Just like, mainstream media, everything is outward appearances, it's always damage control with all media. But mainstream media is the product of the boomers. Mainstream media is the product of the boomers, okay? And the boomers' mainstream media was all about damage control, like while cities are collapsing and famine runs rampant and forests are being fucking like totally cleared and oceans are being polluted with garbage. All this is, the boomers are doing all this because they're all selling out for shekel. And then the media is designed to, do damage control to hide. Oh, let's hide this collapsing city over here. We'll just hide everything. And and the boomers are still around, dude. Of course they're all dying, but they're still around, bro. They're the ones. All the guys that have the money they're too old. Look at like all of these fucking 90-year-olds that are occupying all of these positions of power. They're like 90 fucking years old. And they're like, okay, I'm showing up for where's Biden? Anybody see Biden anyway? Like, who the fuck are these fucking dinosaurs, dude? These decrepit, what is going on? Biden. Fucking 97-year-old Biden. And he's the face of this country? Why do you think all these boomers are fucking strangleholding all the positions of power? And so all these boomers, they're hiding all this fucking damage that they've caused all these years. Which the nuclear assault song Inherited Hell goes through in a snappy tune over everything that has been going on. Cities collapsing, famine runs rampant, a nightmare where once there was life, radiation and toxins, a part of the children who will hate the sun until they die. Dude, this song came out in like 1990. Or earlier. Or some shit. Those were real truthers. And the final verse, is we never stop to think or reflect on what we have done to our world, anyways, it goes on and on. Like, this is the truth. All these generations that have come before us that have just left us with this big pile of garbage, in place of what used to be, natural resources. They just raped it all and replaced it with just shit. And then they did damage control using, imagery, moving pictures, mainstream media moving pictures to hide everything, and you know, and the bread and circuses to distract everybody with football, you know, fucking, you know, sports ball and all this gay shit, all this stuff that, anyways, whatever. Again, no offense to boomers. Like, most of my friends are older because older people are wiser. Younger people are just stupid. Now, is that by design? Probably. Is that because of brainwash and indoctrination? Yeah, probably. Are all boomers guilty? No. But anyways, I was just going to just do a video and talk about whatever, and I ended up going off on this tangent. So I'll just post this video. See you, boys.